What's up builders, it's me, Jimbotron, back at you with another video. In today's video, I will be covering the patch that dropped yesterday and what it actually means, as this was quite a large patch for Overwatch Stadium. Apologies, I couldn't edit the video any quicker, as I hope that it's not too late to educate some of you. And I just want to say I've literally made a tier list yesterday, and now I have to make another one because most of my picks are now wrong, which is sad. Let's get into it. So, at first, something worth noting is a base game change, and that's to Vendetta. At the start of the season patch, Vendetta got 25 armor removed. This made her have 250 health, and now she's got 25 health added, so now she's back up to 275. Just 25 of her armor is now health compared to last season. Honestly, I can see why they did this. Vendetta did feel incredibly squishy. This will affect her base game much more than Stadium, because 25 health isn't as significant in Stadium. However, I'm glad to see that they're taking this character back in the right direction. Okay, now on to the actual Stadium changes. So first of all, my boy Hazard has been taken out back and he's been done dirty, because tell me why this is the third time off-the-wall damage has been nerfed. On release, this thing did 85 damage on the explosion. They moved it down to 60 and now it's 40. Don't get me wrong, I'm not vouching for this being anywhere near 85 ever again, because that was absolutely disgusting to play against. However, I think 60 wasn't broken. I think the abilities that synergized with this were more broken than the damage itself, but anyway, that's been nerfed. And outside of the wall being nerfed, they have butchered the block build, which I'm sure we're all happy to see. The one that allowed us to gain Spike Guard resource has now been reduced, and then Violent Leap bonus energy gained from 15 to 10. So technically, this fills up quicker percentage-based than how it used to be. Each hit will fill up 2/3 of the meter instead of half of it, but you're also getting half the size of the meter, so it is significantly nerfed. Then, Hit Me Again has had its movement speed reduced. You wouldn't really take this for the movement speed, so I doubt that's going to have that large of an impact. And last but not least, probably the biggest one there, in my opinion, is Freak Foil. Now, if you are any Legend or higher Hazard player, you will know that Freak Foil is a must in every single one of his builds, block or not. It gave you 50% uptime and basically an instant refresh on your block every time you just walled. This effect has basically just been halved, so this is half as valuable. Which I think you can really now no longer justify the 13,000 cost. I think they're going to have to bring the cost back down to 11, maybe even 12,000 in the future, but yeah, Hazard might be dead. And the next is one that shocked everyone, and that is Junker Queen. This wasn't shocking because it happened. This was shocking because they actually did it. This character has been torment in the ranks since Season 2. Since the buff, Royal Bullets have no damage drop-off. It only used to work within 12 meters. Royal Bullets has been the best power in the game. This is purely down to how wounds work, so while someone's wounded, you heal for 225% of the damage that wound dealt. So now this has basically gone from healing you for 90 per critical hit to healing you for 57 per critical hit, which might not seem crazy. That's still a very decently strong amount of healing just for being able to crit someone. Don't get me wrong, this will still probably be one of the strongest Junker powers, but this was so overtuned. If you weren't running Royal Bullets, what were you doing? Now it's actually comparable to some of her other powers. And we're nerfing Orisa. So when they originally turned Restorify from 5 to 8% max life per second, I wasn't too sure what they were doing. Restorify over in Season 1 restored 10% max life per second. That was absurd, so the fact that we were only 2% down from that was crazy. Back at 5% is nice now. And they nerfed one of the strongest blues in the game, which I'm very happy about. This was the strongest offensive base blue, and it wasn't even close. Anyone further than 12 meters took 25% more base damage. If you don't understand why 25% more base damage is insane for 4,000, then I don't know what to say. This thing was so broken. It has now been turned down to 10%. Your attack speed bonus has been decreased, and it now costs more, so that's great. Ramatra got a lot of noticeable changes. However, I'm going to summarize it all and say Ravenous Vortex builds got nerfed, Primary Fire builds got buffed, and there's a rework here and there. I'll go through that though. Starting off, we have Retaliation. So this got its max damage increased to 150. I think this is now honestly worth taking because 150 that can also be done multiple times per block is actually quite large amounts of burst damage. And last season, this could be scaled with AP, so if that is the case, having another 300 burst damage is kind of insane. Dread Knight got nerfed by a second on the ultimate, which is okay. It already lasted an eternity anyway. Conversion Protocol literally got halved. It now does significantly less healing. I don't think it's an awful power anymore, but I didn't think it was too broken beforehand compared to some of his other powers. Honestly, I think this power is hard to justify taking. Voracious Maelstrom got nerfed, and this was required. It now reduces the cooldown half as much as it used to, and honestly, deserved. It was very much a, we have Cluster Core at home, and for 5,000 you could have virtually permanent Nemesis form if you just paired it with second phase, so this was needed. Up next we have Void Blight, which got increased by 10 damage that scales up with weapon power. Our 7000 power cell got its cost reduced by 2000, and Recursion Relay now amplifies the damage by 15% instead of 10. All of these changes are very minor, in hopes to try and tune the weapon build into the same space as the Vortex build is right now. Then we have second phase, only giving 75% cooldown reduction instead of 100. Honestly, this is only going to be noticeable if you were trying to Vortex into form Vortex. However, I don't think this will kill the power. I think second phase is still very much Ram's strongest power at this point. Final form, 80 healing per second is now 50, so this means you can only get 150 healing instead of 240 per Vortex. Which is sad, because we never got to see this thing at full potential. Because if you ran it along with the jumping Vortex, it started to heal your opponents, which might still be a bug. I don't know. Alright, finally we got Nanomender back. It no longer heals your enemies. Let's go, Blizzard, you did your job. Anyway, as to round off the tanks, Zarya got a cash increase. Moving on to damage, this is really boring, but Freya got a damage reduction increase on Volley à deux. Now, the thing is, after Freya received nerfs last time, I did a tier list yesterday, as I mentioned, and I had her in the very lowest of S. I have to see how it plays out, but for the first time, Freya might not be an S tier character anymore. Ana got Cluster Core re-enabled, which means the Falcon Protocol is now usable again. I'll leave the link for that down below if you want to check it out. Super overpowered Ana build. I actually did also make a video on why it was broken, like a huge bug behind it. And as far as I'm aware, it was only me and a few friends on the server who discovered it. So unless a developer discovered it by accident, I actually think that my videos are reaching enough of an audience to have a voice towards the developers, which is honestly really nice to hear, so I'm happy about that. Next is Brig. Brig got one nerf. Her repair pack duration on pack stack decreased from 50% to 25%. This is technically half as much, which is a huge nerf. However, you can still just extend it by a second for every instance of ability damage you do, so it's really not as bad as it seems. Next we have Juno. Juno's Metamaster got reverted back up to 200%. It was 200% last season, but they nerfed it into this season because they gave the blaster a lot of additional power it didn't already have. However, they reverted this change, and honestly, I'm quite happy about it because I think Juno's weapon build really wants to work this season. I was definitely struggling to get it going when the heal formation that just got re-enabled wasn't here, but now I think it's definitely promising. And they buffed Long Range Blaster to have 15 meters of additional range instead of 5. This was needed. It was a 12k epic that gave 5 meters of extra range, which was basically useless in 90% of scenarios, so 15 meters is a huge difference. And finally, to round this off, we have Wuyong Water College Hat. One of my favorite items, got nerfed, and again, this was very much deserved. This was one of those blues that just gave way too much value compared to its cost. I still think this is definitely a very usable item, would still encourage taking it, especially if you're taking Slipstream. Honestly, I'm really happy about these fixes because they actually did the right thing for once. They made the most broken tanks a bit more adjusted, gave some of the struggling ones a boost. I only think they didn't give some other struggling tanks a boost because they did get a boost at the start of the season, so they want to see how that plays out first. Anyway, builders, that's everything for today. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.